My name is Laura Flamm. I'm with Motorola Solutions, Inc. And I'm here today to talk to you about some research that we have done. I realized the irony of having this firefighter graphic from our PowerPoint template on the cover of my presentation about developer support models last night. This is not to indicate that every developer support issue should be answered in firefighter mode. To give you a little bit of background on Motorola Solutions, why we're here and why I have done this research, and I'm here sharing it with you. So we're a 90-year-old company founded in Chicago, and you may be familiar with our eponymous bat wings branding down on the side there. And what you might not know is that back in 2011, we actually spun off the cell phone business. And the rest of the business, so that's including our radio products, land mobile radio, networking, software, became Motorola Solutions. So we are a Fortune 500 company, over $7 billion in revenue last year, and we have 5,500 patents. Big history of technology and technology evolution. So to give you a little bit better sense of what we do, and why we have a developer program, I'm going to talk a bit about our products. So our main focus is public safety. So our customer segment includes public safety agencies, local and state government, federal government, and then of course emergency management, professionals within commercial and education industries as well. So everything that you see up top is our radio systems and networking products. And then what we are experiencing over the past few years is a rapidly growing software business. So what you see along the bottom here is our end-to-end software suite for the public safety sector. So we do everything from when a 911 call comes in, all the way down to when an offender is incarcerated and they need to be managed by some type of software system. That is part of our suite as well. As you can imagine, public safety answering points and agencies, sheriff's offices, et cetera, have many other operational tools alongside this core tech stack that they have to use. So Chase's presentation about integrations, I was like, I live and breathe this every single day. So, everything from personnel management software all the way to, video visitation software for jail inmates to receive video calls from loved ones and friends are things that we have to integrate with. And so how do we do that? We are continuing to evolve and grow our set of software enterprise APIs. And then, of course, we have our land mobile radio and network APIs. And we've had a successful developer program around that land mobile radio piece since 2008. A couple of my colleagues from that team are here as well. And I really am on the side of the software enterprise forging our engagement models with our third-party developers when it comes to these APIs that you see here along the bottom. And so part of that involved a months-long process of benchmarking. I think that's something that we all have to do as companies that have developer programs that deal with developers day in and day out, and that need to make money off of our developer programs. I think it's really important to get a sense for what's going on in the market, what other programs are doing, what their success drivers are, and what their cost drivers are. And one piece of that cost driver side of things is your support models, right? So I think that, what we ended up doing was looking at 25 of the top B2B enterprise software companies and their developer programs, and then basically benchmarking a whole number of different elements of those programs. So everything from the way they handle developer intake to API licensing, all the way to support models. And so what I'm going to share with you is essentially a matrix that we used to help us look at how developer support is handled across B2B enterprise software companies in the market and their developer programs. So you can see across the bottom, here we have essentially a spectrum from low touch to high touch support elements. So, on the low touch side of things, you've got your community-based support. It's a forum. Somebody puts it up there and, developer has an issue and they can throw a question out there on the forum and maybe they'll get an answer. All the way up to, on the high touch side of things, we actually see developer programs offering access to internal or product engineering teams. On the cost and commitment side, so essentially we took each one of those elements and gave it a score, and then pinned it up against the cost and commitment, right? So, what is a program charging? What are their requirements for someone to get access to these support elements? And then scoring again based on that cost commitment piece of things. And when it comes to cost and commitment, obviously that commitment piece, I didn't just look at what they're charging in terms of developer program fees and support fees, but also status requirements. So you see a lot of developer support models where if you're gonna get access to a test server or test environment, you've got to be a platinum partner. In order to be a platinum partner, maybe you don't have to pay a whole lot of money, but you do have to jump through a bunch of hoops to get your integration or your application that you've developed to that point where you can get access to those things. So when we take the 25 programs that we looked at and put them into this matrix, and just to give you some context on what those programs were, they all came out of the PwC Top 100 B2B enterprise software list. There are a few outliers there that we pulled in that are more similar in terms of industry to where we play. But for the most part, the majority of these are top 100 B2B enterprise software companies. And so what you see is they fall pretty naturally into, I would say, 4 general models of support. So on the very low end, we have what we call essentially our self-service developer support model. So this is where, again, they're not really charging any type of program fees. You can come in, kind of do what you want, play around. But really, when it comes to getting support, you're at a self-service model. You're going in to a community forum, you're maybe have the ability to submit a ticket, but you really don't have a phone number that you can pick up and call. And for the most part, the companies that fit into this area are in the big data realm. So, you have companies that have maybe some data set with latent value, right, that they have chosen to expose to development. And they're not really making it a core offering, but they're kind of saying, hey, we're opening this up, come and play with it. So those are more the companies that we tend to see down there. Our application developer program happens to fit into that quadrant, sort of. I think it's kind of more towards the value and really kind of in the middle area, but we actually fall kind of within that quadrant as well. And then if we move along the x-axis here, we get to what I call our value quadrant. So the value quadrant is where you have access to those high-touch elements. You can actually call somebody at that developer program and get answers for issues that you have. But they're not expecting a lot of you in return, which is kind of cool. We tend to see this with more mature companies, more mature developer programs that have been around for a long time, and also with wider ecosystems. So it makes sense, right? If you have 1,000+ developers, you're able to spread the costs of that support that you're offering over that wide pool of developers. So if we move up that cost and commitment spectrum, on the left-hand side, you see our premium quadrant, and that's where you're getting really more sort of low-touch support elements. Again, community forum, maybe you can submit some support issues or support cases, but if you do, you're going to pay for it. So, we're talking about hourly fees for, responses to some of the support issues that you could be dealing with. And so this was kind of an odd mix of companies that do this. I would say, to generalize a little bit, that you're looking at more expensive, more complex technologies like converged infrastructure. Some networking technology companies fit more into that premium side of their developer support model. And then finally over here we have what I call quality. Everybody's going to say that their developer support model is high quality. But in this case, what we're trying to describe is essentially companies that offer high-touch support elements, but that also charge for those high-touch support elements. So this is where we tend to see companies that have potentially some more complex technologies again, right, similar to on the premium side, but they are offering that personalized support, those high-touch elements. So just to summarize for you again, our 4 models of developer support that were identified through this benchmarking research are the self-service side, low or no program fees, self-serve access, focus on community-based support. Then you've got the value model, where you have low or no program fees, but you do get personalized support, and you've got multiple routes to getting that support. So that's kind of, for a developer, probably where you want to be. And then up top, in terms of cost and commitment, on the high side, you've got the higher program fees. For the premium model, more limited support, maybe fee-based. And then on the quality side, those high program fees, but you're getting really generous support and access to internal folks to help you out. So what's the takeaway from this, right? I mean, we've done all this benchmarking research, and it was really important, I think, for us to take a look at, how does this support program strategy? How can we use this information to continue to refine our models for how we engage with third-party developers? And so this is nothing new. I think everyone here probably understands very well what these objectives are. And I actually pulled these straight from Forrester research. So developer program objectives, what are we trying to do? So first, we're extending our channels. We're streamlining our customer processes. And then, of course, creating innovative new value. That's really what it boils down to. And so how can we support those objectives through how we're implementing our developer support? I think that each of those models in some way can support each of these objectives. I do think that some of the models support some of the objectives a little bit better. I'm going to go out there and say that the self-service and value side, where you're bringing in a really broad ecosystem and you've got a high volume of developers coming in, and also related to that, probably a high volume of support issues, that's really where you're playing into that extending your channel. When you've got 1,000+ developers, that's the type of space where you're looking for the most routes to market that you can possibly get. And so when it comes to your developer support, what you're trying to do is spread out your support costs, first off, over that wide pool of developers. And then I think for the most part, looking at the models that we saw in that quadrant, I think a lot of them are betting on revenue generation potential too, right? That maybe only 20% of those 1,000 developers or 2,000 developers are submitting support issues, but it's that 20% that are going to go out and create applications or integrations that are going to produce revenue for that company. Then if we turn to premium and quality, so here I think you're looking at a little bit different scenario, right? So you're still extending channels, sure. But this is where I see that streamlining customer processes piece really being supported by these models, right? Because for the most part with premium and quality, you're looking at more complex technologies where there's less existing knowledge in the market. So if a third-party developer is coming in, they're naturally going to need some more hand-holding, and you're going to need to provide more support to that developer. But you also don't have 1,000 or 2,000 developers to spread that cost out over. So in this case, this is where we tend to see some of those higher fees, right? And potentially even a direct tie to revenue. So when you're charging developers $200 per support case or something that comes in, that's really kind of when you're looking at a model where you've got some real revenue expectations, and you're helping to fill product gaps and streamline those customer processes. Create innovative new value, I think really is equally something that is supported by all of the models. It's an area where, again, especially the companies that are using data sets and exposing them for people to sort of play with and do interesting and new things with, that's where that creating innovative new value really comes in. So I would like to close just with some best practices from some of the programs that we looked at. I know our friends from IBM and Cisco are both here. I don't know if they're in this room, but I know that they were both here at the conference. But I think when you look at as many developer support models as we looked at during this exercise, some of the things that people are doing really stand out as kind of gems within the marketplace and what they're doing. I think Salesforce, we can all kind of call a gold standard when it comes to developer programs. But one of the things that I think they do that's particularly cool is monthly office hours, right? So they're offering essentially a high-touch support element, but they're not charging for it, and they're not really losing any money on it because they're just saying, okay, here's a WebEx link or whatever it happens to be, and call in, every couple of weeks, and we'll sit there and answer questions for a couple hours. So it's a lot more immediate and a lot more high touch than just having a community forum, but it's not really costing them anything more, and they're able to engage more with their developers that way. IBM was one that really stands out, and I think one of the cool things here is that they actually have phone, chat, and email support. So, you've got your forum that you can go ahead and submit an issue in, but everybody gets a phone number that they can call, which I think that's kind of amazing. I don't know how they do it. I think they, again, spread those costs out over thousands of developers. It's part of how they're able to offer that type of support. But I think those multiple routes to getting it is key here, and it's something that they do well. And then Cisco, one of the standout elements that I think that they offer is support cases limited according to their partner tier. So if you come in to Cisco and you get onto DevNet, you have access to free community-based support. But as you start to really kind of move up the chain as a partner, and you start to get to a point where you've got an application that you want to commercialize, you get to the point where you get to purchase tickets, so you can purchase support tickets, and then once you're at a silver or gold level, you get 5 free support cases per year, I think is at the silver level, and then it moves up to 10. Right, so they're really tightly, I think, calibrating that level of support to the level of commitment that the developer is making to that program and to commercializing an application with Cisco. So I hope that I know we're going to do Q&A later, so I just put that up there. I hope that gave you a good sense for what's going on in the market in terms of developer support, and I'm happy to take any questions later. So thanks a lot.